Okay, so before I even start, let me just say this. I know how stupid this is going to sound. I can already hear the comments roasting me for how bad of an idea this whole thing was. Trust me, I get it. I'm living with the consequences now, and I'd do anything to undo what happened. But I can't. All I can do is tell you my story. It started like most terrible decisions do, with boredom. I was chilling with my best friend Kyle one Friday night. You know the vibe, crappy fast food, McDonald's, obviously, scrolling through TikTok, laughing at stupid memes, and basically doing nothing productive. It was one of those nights where you talk about doing something exciting, but end up binging YouTube videos instead. Anyway, we somehow landed on this rabbit hole of dark web horror stories. You know the type, people buying mystery boxes, hiring hitmen, which is obviously fake, right? Or stumbling onto creepy red rooms. Half of them sounded like total BS, but they were entertaining enough to keep us hooked. Then Kyle, in his infinite wisdom, says, "Dude, we should check out the dark web ourselves." Now, let me be clear, I'm not some tech genius. Neither is Kyle. The most hacker thing I've ever done was Google free Netflix accounts when I was broke in college. But Kyle swore he knew how to get on the dark web. He'd seen a couple of tutorials on Reddit and YouTube and had downloaded something called Tor browser. I thought he was joking, but within 10 minutes he had it up and running on his laptop. At first, it was kind of underwhelming. It looked like a crappier version of Craigslist, but with sketchier ads. There were forums selling fake passports, miracle drugs, and obviously illegal stuff I don't even want to mention here. But then Kyle stumbled on something that caught both of our attention, a post titled "Treasure Hunt, Win Big Dollars." The description was short and cryptic. Want to play a game? Think you're smart enough to solve riddles, brave enough to find the prize? If you succeed, you'll win $50,000, but beware, there are consequences for failure. It felt like something out of a movie. The post had this weird, homemade vibe, like someone was trying too hard to sound ominous. But $50,000? Yeah, that had our attention. The instructions were simple enough. Pay a $100 entry fee in Bitcoin, and they'd send us the first clue. I was skeptical, obviously. It screamed scam, but Kyle was all in. "This is probably some nerd in their mum's basement trying to make a quick buck," he said, pulling out his phone. "But what if it's legit? $50,000 could get me out of this hellhole job." I rolled my eyes, but didn't stop him. $100 wasn't a big deal to him. His parents had money, and he wasn't exactly responsible with it. So he sent the payment, and within 5 minutes we got a reply with the first riddle. It was surprisingly legit, well, at first. The clue was some cryptic message about finding the star that never sets and following the path of the eternal flame. Kyle thought it was referring to this old abandoned cemetery outside of town. There was a local urban legend about a statue there with a star on it that people claimed glowed at night. I wasn't thrilled about going to a cemetery at midnight, but Kyle was hyped. He was convinced this was the start of some grand adventure, like those treasure hunts in movies. And honestly, a part of me was curious too, so we grabbed flashlights, hopped into Kyle's car, and drove out to the cemetery. The place was creepy as hell. I know that sounds cliché, but I'm serious. It wasn't one of those well-kept cemeteries with nice gates and trimmed grass. This one was overgrown, half forgotten, and surrounded by woods. The kind of place you only see in bad horror movies. We parked the car just outside the gates and climbed over, because of course it was locked. The air felt heavier in there, like the silence itself was pressing down on us. Even Kyle, who was usually the loudest guy in the room, was whispering as we walked. After about 20 minutes of wandering, we found it, a crumbling statue of an angel holding a star. And here's where things got weird. At the base of the statue, there was a small, wooden box. It looked new, way too new to belong in that decrepit cemetery. Kyle picked it up and opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper with another clue. You found the first piece. Follow the map to claim your reward, but remember, some treasures aren't meant to be found. Beneath the note was a USB drive. We both stared at it, trying to process what the hell we'd just gotten ourselves into. "Dude, this is getting creepy," I said. "Maybe we should just stop." But Kyle? Oh no, he was all in. "Are you kidding me? This is awesome. It's like some real-life escape room." I wanted to argue, but I didn't. Kyle was already heading back to the car, and I wasn't about to hang out in a cemetery alone. When we got back to Kyle's place, he plugged the USB into his laptop. Looking back, that was mistake number 1. The drive had one file on it, a video. The screen was pitch black at first, but then a distorted voice started speaking. It sounded like someone talking through a voice changer, and their words sent a chill down my spine. "You've proven yourself worthy so far, but the real test begins now. Your next clue is hidden in the place where broken promises lie. Be careful, you're being watched." The video ended with an image of what looked like an old, boarded-up building. Kyle paused it and zoomed in, trying to make out the details. "That's the old elementary school downtown," he said. "You know, the one that burned down like 20 years ago?" I felt a pit in my stomach. I remembered that place. It was infamous around here. Kids used to dare each other to sneak inside, but no one ever stayed long. They said it was haunted, though I always figured it was just the asbestos or something making people freak out. Still, something about the way Kyle was so excited about going made me uneasy. "Kyle, maybe we should just call it," I said. "I mean, what if this is some psycho trying to lure us somewhere? Or worse, what if it's a trap for cops?" But Kyle wasn't listening. He was already grabbing his keys again. "Come on, man," he said. "We're in too deep to back out now." And like an idiot, I followed him. So we're driving to this abandoned elementary school at like 2 a.m., and the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell am I doing? The streets were completely empty, and that eerie quiet you only get in the middle of the night was making me paranoid. Every time a tree branch moved or a car passed in the distance, I'd whip my head around like I was expecting someone to follow us. Kyle, though? He was acting like a kid on Christmas morning. He had this massive grin on his face, like he'd just cracked the code to the Da Vinci treasure or something. It was honestly starting to piss me off. The school wasn't hard to find. It's kind of a local landmark in the worst way possible. It burned down in the late 90s and no one bothered to rebuild it. It's been sitting there ever since, rotting and covered in graffiti. People always said it was haunted, but I never believed in that kind of thing. At least, not until that night. We parked a block away, just to be safe. Kyle grabbed his flashlight and a crowbar, just in case, he said, and we walked to the school. I could feel the crunch of broken glass under my shoes as we got closer. The building was even creepier up close. The windows were all shattered, the front door was chained shut, and there were blackened scorch marks on the brick from the fire. Kyle found a side door that was loose, and within seconds we were inside. Now, if you've ever been in an abandoned building at night, you know how unsettling it is. The air felt damp and heavy, like the place was holding its breath. Our flashlights barely cut through the darkness, and every step we took echoed like gunshots. We started walking down one of the old hallways, stepping over broken desks and crumbling plaster. The walls were covered in graffiti, some of it just random tags, but some of it was weird. I'm talking pentagrams, numbers that didn't make sense, and words like, "They're watching," and "Run while you can." Kyle just laughed it off, but I wasn't so sure. After about 10 minutes of exploring, we found it, a locked door with a spray-painted red X on it. "This has got to be it," Kyle whispered, grinning. He pried the door open with the crowbar, and we stepped into what used to be a classroom. The chalkboard was still there, but it was covered in dust and strange symbols. The desks were flipped over, and in the middle of the room was another box. This one was metal, with a rusty padlock on it. Kyle went straight for the box, of course. He smashed the lock off with the crowbar and opened it. Inside was a map. It wasn't what I was expecting. It wasn't even a real map, like one you'd buy at a gas station. It looked hand-drawn with crude sketches of landmarks and a bunch of arrows leading to an X marked in bold red ink. But that wasn't the weirdest part. The weirdest part was the note tucked under the map. It wasn't like the other clues we'd found. This one was handwritten in shaky, uneven letters that looked like they'd been scrawled by someone in a hurry. It said, "Stop. This is your final warning. The treasure is not worth it. You are being watched." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as I read it. "Kyle, I'm serious, man. This is too much. What if someone's actually watching us? What if this isn't a game?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But Kyle just laughed. "Dude, come on. It's probably just part of the act. Whoever set this up is trying to scare us." He folded up the map and shoved it into his pocket before I could argue. "Let's get out of here. We've got a treasure to find." On the way back to the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. I kept glancing over my shoulder, but there was nothing there. Still, my heart was pounding the entire walk back. Kyle, of course, didn't notice a thing. He was too busy staring at the map, trying to figure out where the X was. "It's not far," he said, as we got into the car. "Looks like it's in the woods behind the old quarry." That's when I lost it. "Kyle, are you hearing yourself right now? The woods? At night? Behind a freaking quarry? Do you not realize how sketchy this is?" But he just gave me that cocky grin of his. "Dude, don't be such a baby. This is what we signed up for." I wanted to punch him. Instead, I sat back in my seat and tried to calm down as he drove us to the next location. We got to the quarry around 3:30 a.m. The place was pitch black, except for the faint glow of the moon. Kyle parked the car near the edge of the woods and grabbed the map. "Let's make this quick," I muttered. The woods were dense, and the further we went, the harder it was to keep track of where we were. We had to stop every few minutes so Kyle could check the map, and each time the silence around us felt heavier. And then I started hearing it. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but no, it was footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming from somewhere behind us. "Kyle," I whispered, grabbing his arm, "do you hear that?" He stopped and listened. For a second, everything went silent. Then the footsteps started again, closer this time. "Okay, maybe this is getting a little creepy," Kyle admitted, his voice shaking slightly. We picked up the pace, practically jogging through the woods now. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, and every shadow looked like it was moving. Finally, we reached the spot marked on the map. There was a small clearing, and in the middle of it was a hole. It looked like someone had been digging there recently. There was a rusty shovel sticking out of the dirt, and next to it was a large wooden crate, half buried. Kyle didn't even hesitate. He grabbed the shovel and started digging while I stood there, frozen. "Kyle, we need to leave," I said. "Now." But he ignored me. Within minutes, he'd unearthed the crate and pried it open with the shovel. Inside was a single object, a black, leather-bound book. "What the hell is this?" Kyle muttered, picking it up. The second he touched it, I swear to God, the woods went completely silent. No wind, no footsteps, nothing. And then, out of nowhere, we heard it, a low, guttural growl coming from the darkness around us. That was the last straw for me. "Kyle, run!" I screamed, yanking him to his feet. We bolted back toward the car, the sound of footsteps and growls chasing us the entire way. I didn't dare look back, but I could hear something, or someone, getting closer and closer. By the time we reached the car, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the door. We jumped in and Kyle floored it, peeling out of there as fast as the car would go. Neither of us said a word the entire drive back to his place. It wasn't until we got inside, locked the doors, and collapsed onto his couch that I finally spoke. "What the hell was that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Kyle didn't answer. He was staring at the black book, still clutching it like it was the most important thing in the world. "Dude, put it down," I said. "Just put it down." But he didn't. And that's when his phone buzzed. He picked it up, and his face went pale. "It's a text," he said. "From who?" He turned the screen toward me. The text said, "You shouldn't have taken it. We're coming. Let me just get one thing out of the way. If you ever get a text like that in the middle of the night, we're coming. You'll never feel safe again." Kyle and I stared at his phone, and I could feel my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. "We're coming," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Kyle, who the hell is texting you?" He didn't answer. He just sat there, gripping that damn black book like it was glued to his hands. His face was pale, his breathing uneven. "Kyle!" I snapped, grabbing his arm. "Who sent the text?" He finally looked at me, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I saw actual fear in his eyes. It's from a number I don't recognize," he stammered. "No name, just nothing." That wasn't reassuring, not even a little. I grabbed my phone and opened Google. "We need to call the cops, man," I said. "I don't care if this is some elaborate prank. We need help." But before I could dial, Kyle grabbed my wrist. "Wait, what if this is part of the game?" he said, his voice shaky, but still clinging to that stupid excitement he'd had all night. "What if they're just trying to freak us out and we're falling for it?"
I yanked my arm away. "Are you even listening to yourself right now? We were chased through the woods, you got a cryptic text message, and you think this is still a game?" Kyle opened his mouth to argue, but then we heard it. A knock at the front door. We both froze. It wasn't a loud, aggressive knock. It was slow, deliberate, almost polite. Like whoever was on the other side wanted us to know they were there but didn't want to scare us. I looked at Kyle and he looked at me. Neither of us moved. Then it came again. 3 soft knocks, perfectly spaced out. "Who the hell is knocking at 4 in the morning?" I whispered. Kyle shook his head. He didn't have an answer. "Don't open it," I said. "No matter what." Kyle nodded, but I could see the gears turning in his head. He was still gripping the book, and I swear he looked like he was about to do something stupid. The knocking stopped, and for a moment, I thought maybe whoever it was had given up. But then I heard something worse, the faint creak of footsteps on the porch. Slow, heavy footsteps, like someone was pacing back and forth. I grabbed Kyle by the arm and whispered, "We need to hide." "Hide? Dude, it's probably nothing," he hissed back. "Nothing," I almost yelled. "Nothing chased us through the woods. Nothing sent you that text. Nothing is walking around your porch right now." I didn't wait for his response. I grabbed him and dragged him toward the back of the house. His parents weren't home. They were out of town for the weekend, which meant we couldn't rely on anyone else. It was just us. We ended up in his parents' bedroom, crouched in the dark behind their bed. Kyle still hadn't let go of the damn book. "Put it down," I whispered. "What?" "The book. Put it down. I think it's why this is happening." Kyle shook his head furiously. "No way! What if it's the key to the treasure? What if—" "Kyle, are you kidding me?" I snapped. People are coming after us because of that thing. Do you even hear yourself right now? Before he could argue, my phone buzzed. I almost dropped it. It was a text from an unknown number. We're inside. I swear my heart stopped. Kyle, I whispered, holding up my phone. They're in the house. His eyes widened, and for the first time all night, I saw him start to panic. We need to get out of here, I said. Now. The problem was we were trapped. Kyle's room was at the far end of the hallway, and the only way out was through the living room. I peeked out from behind the bed, trying to hear where the intruders might be. The house was silent. Too silent. I couldn't even hear the usual hum of the fridge or the creak of the old pipes. It was like someone had sucked all the sound out of the air. I grabbed Kyle's arm and motioned for him to follow me. Slowly, carefully, we crept out of the bedroom and into the hallway. That's when I saw it. The front door was wide open, and standing in the middle of the living room was a figure. They were tall, way taller than anyone I'd ever seen. They were wearing a long black coat that hung down to their ankles, and their face was covered by some kind of mask. It was white and smooth, with no features except for two dark, empty holes where the eyes should have been. I froze. My breath caught in my throat, and my legs felt like they were glued to the floor. The figure didn't move, it just stood there, perfectly still, staring at us. Kyle, I whispered, barely able to get the words out. We need to run. But before we could even take a step, the figure tilted its head to the side like it was studying us. Then it raised one hand and pointed directly at Kyle. That was it. That was all I needed. I grabbed Kyle's arm and bolted for the back door. We didn't stop running until we were halfway down the street. My chest was on fire and my legs felt like jelly, but I didn't care. I just needed to get as far away from that house as possible. Kyle, though, he was still clutching the damn book. We're not safe, he said, his voice shaking. They'll keep coming. They won't stop until they get it. Then give it to them, I shouted. Drop it, burn it, I don't care. Just get rid of it. But he shook his head. You don't understand. I can't. It's not just a book. It's part of the game. If I give it up, we lose. And if we lose... He trailed off, and I didn't need him to finish. I could already guess what happened to people who lost. That's when his phone buzzed again. Another text. This one was different. Game over. You've been warned. We both stared at the screen, and for a moment, neither of us said a word. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it. The sound of tires screeching. I turned around just in time to see a black van speeding toward us, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Kyle, run! I screamed, shoving him toward the sidewalk. The van skidded to a stop right in front of us, and before I could react, the back doors flew open.
Two men in masks jumped out, grabbed Kyle, and shoved him inside. I tried to fight them, but one of them punched me in the gut so hard I collapsed. Kyle! I screamed, but it was too late. The doors slammed shut and the van peeled out, leaving me lying there in the middle of the road, gasping for air. I called the police, of course, but they didn't believe me. They said it sounded like a domestic dispute or some kind of prank. Kyle's parents came home the next day, and when I told them what happened, they freaked out. They've been calling everyone, his friends, his relatives, even his old teachers, but no one's seen him. It's been 3 days now and I still haven't heard from him. But last night, I got another text. It was from Kyle's number. You should have listened. I didn't sleep after getting that text from Kyle's number. I just sat there in my room, staring at my phone, trying to convince myself it wasn't real, that maybe someone stole his phone or hacked it. But the thing is, Kyle's phone was with him when they took him. I saw it in his hand. I don't know if you've ever been so scared that your body just stops functioning normally. That's how I felt. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was slow, almost like it was trying to conserve energy because it knew something worse was coming. But the scariest thing, I kept hearing noises. It started with small stuff, creaks from the hallway, faint taps on the window, but as the night went on, it got worse. Around 3 a.m., I heard something outside my house. At first, it sounded like footsteps on the driveway, but then I heard it, scratching, like nails dragging down the side of the house. I sat there frozen, clutching a baseball bat I found in my closet, trying not to breathe too loud. Then my phone buzzed. I flinched so hard I nearly dropped it. The screen lit up, and I saw another text. This one wasn't from Kyle's number. It was from a different, unknown number. "Open the door." My stomach dropped. I felt like I was going to throw up. I didn't even have time to process the message before the knocking started. It wasn't a normal knock, though. It was slow, deliberate, almost rhythmic. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 more. I don't even know why I stood up. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe I thought it was just a prank, and I could scare off whoever was messing with me. Either way, I crept out of my room, down the hallway, and toward the front door. I stopped a few feet away, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might wake up the entire neighborhood. I could see a shadow through the frosted glass, a tall, thin figure standing perfectly still on the other side. I don't know why, but I whispered, "Who's there?" The knocking stopped. Then a voice, low and distorted, like it was coming through a broken speaker, spoke from the other side. "Give it back." I froze. "Give what back?" I whispered. "You know," the voice replied. I realized they were talking about the book Kyle refused to let go of, the book that, as far as I knew, was still with him, or with the people who took him. "I don't have it," I said, my voice barely audible. There was silence. For a moment I thought they might have left. But then the voice spoke again. "Liar!" The doorknob started to turn. I didn't even think. I bolted back to my room, locked the door, and shoved my dresser in front of it. I could hear the front door rattling, and my mind was racing with possibilities. Did I lock it earlier? Could they actually get in? And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I sat there in the dark, gripping the bat like it was my lifeline, listening to the silence. I don't know how long I stayed like that. An hour, maybe 2. Finally, when the first rays of sunlight started to creep through my window, I worked up the courage to check the house. The front door was wide open. I didn't call the cops. What was I supposed to tell them? That someone who may or may not exist came to my house and asked for a cursed book I didn't even have? They wouldn't believe me. Hell, I barely believed me. Instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I went online. I started by Googling keywords: dark web treasure hunt, mysterious black book, kidnapped after solving riddles. At first, I got nothing but the usual conspiracy theory garbage, but after a few hours of digging, I found something. It was a thread on an old, abandoned forum, one of those places that looks like it hasn't been updated since 2006. The thread was called The Book, and it only had a few replies. Most of them were incoherent ramblings about watchers and the price of curiosity, but one post stood out.
That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. I didn't tell anyone I was here. I sat in that Starbucks, clutching my phone, trying to piece together how they knew where I was. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't posted anything. Hell, I turned off location services the second this all started to spiral out of control, but somehow they still knew. I kept telling myself I was safe in public, that there were cameras everywhere, people nearby. They wouldn't try anything here, right? Wrong. I glanced out the window and there it was again. The black van, parked across the street this time, engine idling. It felt like the windows were staring at me, daring me to make a move. Okay, calm down, I muttered to myself, my voice trembling. Think. I figured I had two options. I could try to wait them out, or I could make a run for it. But something in the pit of my stomach told me waiting wasn't a good idea. Then my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look at it, but I couldn't help myself. Come outside. I almost dropped the phone. My breathing was shallow, my chest felt tight, and I could feel sweat trickling down my back. I stood up, trying to act casual, and walked to the counter where the barista was wiping down the espresso machine. Hey, I said, my voice barely steady. Do you guys have a back door? She gave me a weird look. Yeah, staff only though. Why? I just need to know, I stammered. Her expression turned suspicious, but she pointed toward the back of the shop. Through there, but you can't. I didn't let her finish. I bolted for the back door, pushing through it and stepping into the narrow alley behind the building. The air back there was cold and damp, and the smell of old garbage hit me like a wall. I kept walking, trying to stay quiet, glancing over my shoulder every few seconds. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Not mine, someone else's. They were steady and deliberate, echoing off the walls of the alley. I whipped around, but the alley was empty. Hello? I called out, instantly regretting it. No response, just more footsteps, getting louder, closer. I broke into a run, my sneakers splashing through puddles as I zigzagged through the maze of alleys behind the Starbucks. My mind was racing. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stop.
Then I heard it. The low rumble of an engine. I turned a corner and there it was. The black van cutting me off like it knew exactly where I'd be. The driver's side door opened and a man in a mask stepped out. He wasn't in a rush. He didn't have to be. He knew I had nowhere to go. "Stay back!" I shouted, holding up my phone like it was a weapon. The man tilted his head like he was amused. Then he raised one hand and pointed behind me. I turned just in time to see another masked figure step out of the shadows, and then another and another. I was surrounded. I don't remember much after that. I tried to fight, but it was pointless. They were too strong, too fast. One of them grabbed me from behind, pinning my arms to my sides while another shoved a cloth over my mouth. The last thing I remember was the smell, something sweet and chemical like rubbing alcohol, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair in a dimly lit room. My head was pounding and my mouth was dry. The air smelled like mildew and something metallic, like rust or blood. I struggled against the ropes, but they were tight. Whoever tied them knew what they were doing. "Hello?" I called out, my voice hoarse. "Is anyone there?" No response, just the faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I glanced around the room, trying to piece together where I was. The walls were bare concrete, stained with dark streaks I didn't want to think about. There was a single metal door on the far side of the room, but no windows. And then I saw it. The book. It was sitting on a small table in front of me, its black leather cover practically glowing under the harsh light. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. There was something about it. Something wrong. It felt like it was watching me. That's when the door opened. A man walked in, at least I think it was a man. He was wearing a suit that looked expensive, but his face was covered by one of those smooth, featureless white masks. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, staring at me, tilting his head like he was studying me. "Where's Kyle?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "What did you do to him?" The man didn't respond. Instead, he reached out and placed a single finger on the book. "You shouldn't have taken it," he said. His voice was deep and distorted, like it was coming through a speaker. "I didn't take anything," I shouted. "It was Kyle. He's the one who—" "The book belongs to the Watchers," he interrupted. "Once it is found, it cannot be returned." I stared at him, my mind racing. What? What do you want from me? He didn't answer. Instead, he slid the book across the table, stopping it right in front of me. Open it, he said. I shook my head. Number, I'm not... Open it! He barked, his voice echoing off the walls. My hands were trembling as I reached out and flipped the cover open. The pages were blank.
All of them. I flipped through, desperately searching for something, anything that would explain what was happening. But there was nothing. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man leaned in close, his mask inches from my face. The game was never about treasure, he said. It's about choices. What choices? I demanded. He stood up straight, towering over me. You'll see, he said. Then he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with the book. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at it. Minutes? Hours? Time didn't feel real anymore. Eventually, the door opened again, and two masked figures walked in. They untied me, yanked me to my feet, and shoved me out into a hallway. I expected them to take me somewhere else, but instead, they led me straight to an exit, a metal door that opened into the outside world. Go, one of them said, shoving me forward. I stumbled outside, blinking in the harsh sunlight. I was in the middle of nowhere, just a dirt road surrounded by trees. When I turned back, the door was gone. It's been a week since then. I haven't heard from Kyle. The cops are still investigating, but I can tell they don't believe me. But the weirdest part? The book. It showed up on my doorstep this morning. I don't know what to do. I thought about burning it, but I'm scared of what might happen if I try. And then there's the last text I got just a few hours ago. It's your turn.
You ever do something stupid just because you're bored? Like, not haha, funny stupid, more like this might screw up my entire life stupid? Yeah, that's exactly where my head was at when I found myself spiraling down a rabbit hole of dark web experiments late one night. I'm not proud of it, but here's how it started. I was home alone, scrolling through TikTok like a zombie. My feed was filled with people doing dumb challenges and life hacks. But then I stumbled on a clip of someone claiming to have ordered a clone of themselves off the dark web. It was obviously fake, but it got me curious. I couldn't stop thinking, what if there's some truth to it? I should have closed the app and gone to sleep, but instead I ended up Googling how to access the dark web and watching a bunch of sketchy tutorials on YouTube. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I had downloaded Tor, set up a VPN, and was browsing forums that looked straight out of a hacker movie. Most of the stuff on there was harmless, just overpriced junk claiming to be haunted or cursed. But then I stumbled across a thread titled Real Clones, Tested and Verified. I should have clicked out right then. The whole thing felt like a scam, but the comments, they were filled with people swearing it was legit. Some of them were straight up horrifying, like, I ordered one and it showed up exactly like me, down to the mole on my neck. My roommate freaked out and moved out the next day. They got my wife's voice perfect. It's terrifying. I had to get rid of it. Against my better judgment, I kept reading. Apparently, you could customize the clone, gender, age, even little personality quirks. And it wasn't you they were cloning. It could be anyone whose details you provided. At this point, it was way past midnight, and my brain was running on fumes. I started joking with myself about how funny it would be to send a clone to one of my friends just to mess with them. That's when the stupid idea hit me. Why not send one to Josh? Josh has been my best friend since high school. He's the guy who'll roast you in front of a crowd, but also come over with snacks and a six-pack when you're having a rough day. We've always pranked each other, but this was next level, so I did it. The process was disturbingly simple. All I had to do was upload a few photos of Josh and fill out a short form. They wanted basic stuff: height, weight, hair color, and any unique traits. I uploaded a pic of him from our last Starbucks run. He's one of those guys who orders a venti caramel frappuccino like it's a personality trait, and added a note about his signature gap-toothed grin. After I hit submit, a timer appeared. Your clone will be delivered in 5 to 7 business days. It was so surreal, I figured it'd either be a total scam or they'd send some cheap mannequin or something. Still, I felt a weird mix of excitement and guilt. What would Josh even do if a version of him showed up at his door? I couldn't wait to find out. The next few days were normal. Josh and I hung out, played some Warzone, and hit up McDonald's for late-night nuggets like we always do. I almost forgot about the whole clone thing until day 6, when Josh texted me something strange. Josh: "Yo, were you at my place earlier? Thought I saw you outside." Me: "Huh?" Number Y: "Josh, IDK, dude. I swear I saw someone that looked just like you staring at my window. Freaked me out." I laughed it off, chalking it up to him being paranoid. But then, on day 7, I got a DM from him on Instagram. "Josh, bro, did you send me a effing body double or some esh? What the hell is going on?" That's when it hit me. The clone must have arrived. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I FaceTimed him. He picked up after a few rings, his face pale and his eyes darting around like he was being watched. "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Josh held up his phone and turned the camera around. My stomach dropped. Standing outside his apartment, perfectly still, was him. Or at least, it looked like him. Same shaggy brown hair, same hoodie he always wears, same gap-toothed grin. It was like staring into a creepy mirror. "Is this your idea of a joke?" he hissed. "Because it's not funny." Before I could say anything, the clone on the screen moved, slowly. It lifted a hand and waved at the camera. Not like a friendly wave, more like it knew it was being watched. And then the screen went black. After Josh hung up, I sat there staring at my phone, trying to convince myself that it wasn't a big deal. It's just a prank, right? That's what I told myself. But deep down, I was starting to feel like I'd opened a door I couldn't close. I mean, it's not every day your best friend FaceTimes you to show you himself, just casually hanging outside his apartment. The next morning, Josh didn't text me back. Normally, he's the kind of guy who'll spam my phone with dumb memes or Snapchats of his cat. But today, nothing. Around noon, I started to feel the weight of it. What if something happened? What if this stupid prank had gone too far? So I did what any terrible friend would do. I drove over to his place to check things out. When I got there, his apartment building looked normal. Too normal, actually. It was one of those bland brick complexes with a tiny parking lot and the kind of generic landscaping you see everywhere. Nothing about it screamed something creepy happened here last night, but I could feel the tension crawling under my skin. I knocked on his door. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. "Josh, open up! It's me!" Still nothing. That's when I noticed the door wasn't fully shut. It was cracked open just enough to let the cold air seep out. My gut told me to leave. Call the cops. Do literally anything other than walk inside. But curiosity, or maybe guilt, pushed me forward. The moment I stepped in, I knew something was wrong. The place smelled like damp clothes and old food, which was weird because Josh was a clean freak. His living room was a mess, empty pizza boxes on the floor, a spilled drink soaking into the carpet. But the worst part, his phone was sitting on the coffee table, buzzing with notifications. He never leaves his phone lying around. "Josh?" My voice cracked a little. The silence that followed felt heavy, like the whole room was holding its breath. I walked deeper into the apartment, past the kitchen and toward his bedroom. That's when I saw the first sign that something was seriously off. His closet door was wide open and all his clothes were thrown onto the floor like someone had been digging through them. And then I noticed the scratches. Long, jagged lines gouged into the closet wall. They looked like claw marks, but too big to be from a cat. Too deep to be anything accidental. My heart started racing as I backed out of the room, and that's when I heard it, a faint creak, like the sound of weight shifting on the floorboards behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. "Josh!" I called again, louder this time. My voice echoed through the empty apartment. No response. Just the eerie hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I grabbed Josh's phone from the table and bolted out of there, slamming the door behind me. Once I was safely in my car, I unlocked his phone. I know, total invasion of privacy, but I needed to figure out what the hell was going on. His messages were weird. The last few texts he sent were all to me. It's staring at me through the window. I locked the door, but I swear I can hear it breathing. Why is it smiling like that? The timestamp on the last one was 2:14 a.m. That was just a few hours before I came over. There were no other texts, no calls, no sign of him anywhere. I checked his Instagram, his Snap, even his email, nothing. It was like he'd vanished. On the drive home, I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. What had I done? This wasn't just a prank anymore. It was something darker, something I didn't understand. I was halfway home when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Josh's number. "Come back. I need to show you something." My hands went cold. I stared at the message, my mind racing. It couldn't be Josh. I had his phone, but what if he had another one? What if he was in trouble and trying to reach me? I pulled over and called the number. It rang twice before someone picked up. For a second, there was nothing but static, and then I heard a voice. "Hey man, it's me." It was Josh. Or at least, it sounded like Josh. But his tone was off, flat, almost robotic. "Where are you?" I asked, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. "Home," he said. "Why'd you leave? Come back." The static grew louder, drowning out his words. And then, just before the call cut off, I swear I heard him laugh. Not the usual Josh laugh. This was slower, deeper, like someone imitating him. When I got back to my place, I locked every door and window. I couldn't stop thinking about that laugh, about the scratches in the closet, about the thing outside his apartment. I barely slept that night. Around 3 a.m., I got another text. This one was worse. It was a photo of me, standing in front of my bedroom window. I didn't move for a full minute after seeing the photo. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. It was me, or something that looked like me, standing outside my own bedroom window. Same hoodie, same messy hair, even the scar I have on my chin from that time I fell off a skateboard in middle school. But here's the thing, I live on the second floor. There's no balcony, no ladder, no way anyone could just be standing outside my window like that. I shot up from my bed, knocking over the can of Coke I'd left on my nightstand. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, pointing it toward the window. The blinds were closed, but I could see the faint outline of something, or someone, on the other side. I crept closer, every step feeling like a lifetime. My brain was screaming at me to stop, to grab my keys and run out the door, but I couldn't. It was like I was being pulled toward the window, like I had to know if it was real. When I finally pulled the blinds back, there was nothing there. Just the empty street below, bathed in the orange glow of the streetlights. I let out a shaky breath and backed away, my mind racing. Had I imagined it? Was it just a weird prank? Then my phone buzzed again. Another text. "Why'd you look away?" I didn't even bother responding. I locked my phone and tossed it on the bed like it was burning my hand. My brain was spinning with questions. If that wasn't me, or whoever sent that photo, outside my window, then where were they? How did they even get that shot? I grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I had and did a sweep of my apartment. Every corner, every closet, under the bed, even behind the shower curtain. Nothing. No signs of anyone breaking in, no footprints, no open windows. Just the same unsettling silence. But the weirdest thing, my reflection in the bathroom mirror. For a split second, as I was checking behind the shower curtain, I thought I saw it smile at me. Not a normal smile either. It was too wide, too toothy, like a bad Photoshop job. I shook it off as paranoia, but the unease stayed with me. The next morning, I couldn't bring myself to go to work. I called in sick, threw on some sweats, and spent most of the day scrolling Reddit, looking for any stories that matched what I was dealing with. There were a few threads about dark web clones, but none of them went into the kind of detail I needed. I finally caved and posted my own thread on r/no sleep, leaving out enough details so I wouldn't sound totally insane. What would you do if you accidentally sent a clone of your best friend to his house and now he's missing? Within minutes, the replies started pouring in. Most were jokes or sarcastic comments, but one reply stood out. Did it act normal at first? They always act normal at first. I clicked on the user's profile, but their account had been deleted. That one comment stuck with me. Was this clone acting normal? Could it have been living Josh's life for the past few days, fooling everyone? I was spiraling. I needed answers. Around 4 p.m., I got another text from Josh's number. Let's meet. McDonald's on 5th, tonight, 7 p.m., don't be late. It was short, cold, and completely unlike him. But I didn't care. If there was even a chance it was the real Josh, I had to go. I arrived early, parking my car in the back where it was dark and out of sight. The McDonald's was crowded like it always was in the evenings, with kids screaming over Happy Meals and college students hogging the free Wi-Fi. I sat in a corner booth where I could see the door and waited. At exactly 7 p.m., someone walked in. It was Josh, or his clone. He looked off. His hair was a little too neat, his smile a little too stiff. But what really freaked me out were his eyes. They weren't quite right. Josh has these big, expressive eyes that always give him away when he's lying. This guy's eyes were flat, empty, like a mannequin's. He spotted me immediately and walked over, sliding into the booth across from me. "What's up, man?" he said, grinning that same too-wide grin I'd seen in my reflection last night. I couldn't speak. My mouth felt dry, my hands clammy. This thing was sitting right in front of me, wearing my best friend's face like a mask. "Cat got your tongue?" it asked, tilting its head slightly, almost like it was amused. "Where's Josh?" I finally managed to croak. It leaned in close, so close I could smell its breath. It smelled like nothing. No burgers, no coffee, no human scent. Just emptiness. "I am Josh," it whispered. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over the table. The clone didn't move, just stared at me with that creepy, hollow smile. I backed away, bumping into a couple of teenagers on their way to the soda machine. "What the hell is your problem?" one of them snapped, but I barely heard him. My heart was pounding, my vision tunneling. I stumbled out of the McDonald's and into the parking lot, gasping for air like I'd just been underwater. That's when I saw it again. Standing by my car, this time it wasn't Josh's clone, it was me. I froze. The me standing by my car wasn't just similar, it was identical. Same hoodie, same jeans, same sneakers, with that little scuff on the left toe from when I tripped over a curb last week. It even had the same tired slump to its shoulders, like it had spent the last 3 nights wide awake, just like I had. And the way it stared at me, it wasn't just looking. It was studying me like I was the one out of place. For a second, I thought I could see its mouth twitch, like it was trying to decide whether to smile or scream. Instead, it did something worse. It tilted its head, just slightly, and mimicked my every move. When I blinked, it blinked. When I shifted my weight, it did the same, almost perfectly in sync. "Hey!" I shouted, though my voice cracked halfway through. "What the hell do you want?" It didn't answer. It didn't even flinch. It just stood there, staring at me with this dead, glassy look in its eyes. I took a step forward, and so did it. I took another, and it matched me again. That's when I noticed something even more chilling. Its footsteps made no sound. None. We were standing in an empty parking lot surrounded by gravel and cracked asphalt, and yet it moved as silently as a shadow. I didn't stick around to find out what it wanted. I spun around and bolted back toward the McDonald's, practically slamming into the glass door as I shoved my way inside. The place was still buzzing with noise, kids laughing, fryers hissing, the faint hum of the ice cream machine which, for once, wasn't broken. For a moment, I felt a wave of relief. But then I glanced back toward the booth where Josh had been sitting. He was gone. My stomach dropped. I scanned the room, hoping I'd spot him casually grabbing a drink or ordering food, but there was no sign of him. It was like he'd vanished the moment I turned my back. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking so bad I could barely unlock it. There was another text waiting for me, sent just a minute ago. "Did you see yourself?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't think of anything to say. What was I supposed to do? Ask if it was a joke? Beg for an explanation? I looked out the window, half expecting to see myself still standing by the car, but the lot was empty now. It was like the world was taunting me. I drove home on autopilot, every nerve in my body screaming at me to stay alert. Every car that passed made me jump. Every shadow on the sidewalk felt like it was moving toward me. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I was drenched in sweat and gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. My house looked normal enough. Quiet, dark, no sign of anything or anyone out of place. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The air felt heavier, colder, like the whole place had been holding its breath. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I just crept through the house, my knife still in my pocket, checking every corner, every closet. Nothing. Just silence. I was halfway up the stairs to my bedroom when I heard it. A faint, scratching sound coming from the bathroom down the hall. I froze, my heart pounding so loud it felt like it might burst. The scratching was steady, rhythmic, like someone dragging their nails across the tiles. Slowly I reached into my pocket, gripping the knife so tightly my fingers started to ache. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The scratching stopped. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, just as I was about to convince myself I'd imagined it, I heard something else. A soft, wet tap, like the sound of water dripping but heavier. I forced myself to move, one step at a time, until I was standing just outside the bathroom. The door was slightly ajar, a thin sliver of light spilling out onto the hallway floor. My hand trembled as I pushed it open. The bathroom was empty, but the mirror was fogged up, like someone had just taken a shower. And on the glass, written in what looked like water droplets, were 2 words. "Look close." My stomach churned. I wiped at the mirror with my sleeve, trying to clear the fog, but as soon as I did, my reflection stopped matching my movements. It stared back at me, perfectly still, its eyes wide and unblinking. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the knife, but the reflection didn't move. It just stood there, watching me, its head tilting to the side like it was curious. Then it smiled. I bolted out of the bathroom, slamming the door behind me. My brain was screaming at me to leave the house, to get as far away as possible, but my legs felt like lead. I collapsed onto the couch in the living room, clutching the knife like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't help it. Another text, this time with a video attached. The video showed me, the other me, standing in the middle of my bedroom, holding the knife I'd just dropped in the bathroom. It turned to face the camera, its expression blank. And then it did something that made my blood run cold. It spoke. "I don't need you anymore." I sat there, staring at the video on my phone, my heart hammering so loud it drowned out every thought. That thing wasn't just mimicking me anymore. It had crossed some line, taken something from me I didn't even realize could be stolen, my identity. The video ended with the clone slowly tilting its head toward the camera, its mouth curling into a sinister smirk. And then, just before the screen went black, it mouthed something I couldn't hear, but understood perfectly. "Come find me." The text had come from my own number. I don't even know how that's possible. It didn't matter anymore. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just content with stalking me or haunting me through reflections. It wanted to replace me. And I couldn't let it. For the first time in this entire nightmare, I stopped running. I grabbed my keys, threw on my jacket, and stormed out the door. If it wanted me to find it, fine. But I wasn't going down without a fight. The address in the text wasn't familiar, but Google Maps said it was only about 15 minutes away. As I drove, the city felt wrong, too quiet, too empty. Even the usual night owls, the late-night gas station loiterers and fast food line crowds seemed to have vanished. It was like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. When I finally arrived, my stomach sank. It was an abandoned warehouse, one of those generic concrete blocks you'd pass 100 times without noticing. The windows were boarded up, and the rusted metal door looked like it hadn't been touched in years. But the light spilling out from the cracks in the boards told a different story. I parked a few blocks away, not wanting to give myself away too soon, and crept toward the building. The closer I got, the more I could hear something, muffled noises like voices and footsteps, but distorted, like they were coming from underwater. My palms were sweating as I reached the door. It was unlocked. Of course it was. The inside of the warehouse was worse than I'd imagined. The walls were covered in mirrors, some of them old and cracked, others shiny and new. They reflected me from every angle, twisting and distorting my image until I couldn't tell which version of me was real. And standing in the center of the room, waiting for me, was it. The clone. It wasn't holding a knife anymore. It didn't need to. The way it stood, the way it moved, it was like it had already decided it was the real me, like I was the imposter. "Glad you came," it said, its voice eerily calm. "Makes this easier." I tightened my grip on the knife I'd brought. "What do you want? Why are you doing this?" It tilted its head, its expression almost pitying. "You don't get it, do you? I don't want anything. I'm just better, stronger, smarter. And now..." It gestured around the room, at the mirrors that seemed to close in around us. "Now I get to take what's mine." I lunged at it, the knife flashing in the dim light. But it moved faster than I thought possible, sidestepping effortlessly and slamming into me with enough force to knock me into one of the mirrors. Glass shattered around me as I hit the ground, shards cutting into my arms and face. The clone stood over me, its smile widening. "You can't win. I know every move you'll make before you make it." "Then why haven't you finished me yet?" I spat, pushing myself up despite the pain. For the first time, it hesitated. Its smile faltered, just for a moment, and I realized something. It might be stronger, faster, smarter, but it wasn't me. It didn't have my fear, my instincts, my desperation. And that was its weakness. I grabbed a shard of broken mirror from the floor and swung it upward, catching the clone by surprise. It stumbled back, clutching at its face as dark, inky liquid oozed from the wound. Not blood, something else, something wrong. The mirrors around us began to ripple, the reflections warping and shifting. The air grew heavier, colder, like the warehouse itself was reacting to the clone's pain. "You think this changes anything?" It snarled, its voice distorting into something deep and guttural. "You can't kill me. I'm already you." "No," I said, forcing myself to stand. "You'll never be me." I ran at it, slamming my full weight into its chest and sending us both crashing into the largest mirror. For a moment, everything was light and sound, a deafening explosion of shattering glass and blinding reflections. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor of the warehouse. The mirrors were gone, replaced by blank, crumbling walls. The clone was nowhere to be seen. My hands were shaking as I sat up, feeling the cold, damp floor beneath me. Had I won, or had it just left? I stumbled out into the night, the chill air hitting me like a slap. My car was still where I'd left it, the streets as empty as before. I drove home in a daze, every shadow on the road making me flinch, every reflection in the rearview mirror setting my nerves on edge. When I got home, everything looked normal. Too normal, the kind of normal that feels staged, like someone trying too hard to convince you nothing's wrong. I checked every corner, every closet, every reflection, but there was no sign of the clone. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. The next morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone. It was a video message from me. The video showed me standing in my bedroom, staring directly into the camera with that same too-wide smile. "You might have won this time," it said, "but you can't escape yourself." And then the screen went black. I haven't slept since. Every time I look in a mirror, I wonder if the reflection is really mine. Every shadow, every movement out of the corner of my eye makes my skin crawl, because I know it's still out there. And one day, it's coming back to finish what it started.